Hi Suprita. Hi Praveenji. Hi Badrunisa. Hi Sunalini, Nandini. Hi Dad. Hi Sita ma'am. Hi Susanna. I'm just going to try to... Hi Smriti. Just going to try to see if I can... There is Valli. Hi Apurva. Hi Rani.
Akhila.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Book of all these props.
So we are live.
I tell you, this is. Huh?
We are live now.
Up, down, where? Here?
Yeah, this is fine.
I think this is better.
This is great.
Oh gosh.
So we are live now and we have a bunch of people watching this conversation already.
Oh heavens. It's been nerve-wracking trying to get the picture on there with the Wi-Fi acting up.
So for those who don't know this conversation also marks Bharatanatyam dancer, choreographer, teacher Alarmel Valli's debut into the world of Instagram. So welcome.
Yes, it is, and it's more nerve-wracking than my own first Arangetram that I had. I can tell you that. I thought I had become accustomed to online talks, but this Instagram business is quite different.
This is
just nice to see you there, Akhila. I think the sound needs to be a little louder. Is there some way of increasing the volume or no?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes. Much better. Much better.
Okay. Thank you all for joining in. And thank you, Valli, really for coming on board and being a part of the Hindu Weekend series, Lockdown with Weekend. We're really, really very honored to have you with us. I mean, like I said, this marks your foray into the world of Instagram. So I'm glad you kind of like did everything it takes for the last 2 days and actually jumped in. Thank you so much for doing this for us.
Well, Akhila, the one thing is that if this is my Arangetram debut, I'm glad that you're the person I'm talking to, because otherwise it would have been more nerve-wracking. Having a very familiar, friendly face there makes a difference. And the fact that this is for the Hindu, also they've known, I've been reviewed by them since I was 11. So it really makes a difference. Absolutely. Most of all, the fact that it is for Mother's Day.
Yes, absolutely. I was just going to, not that anybody here who's logged in really needs an introduction on who you are, but just in case there are a few people who are logging in for the first time, unfamiliar with the world of arts. Even those unfamiliar with the world of arts know you, but I'm just going to take a moment to, just introduce you.
Yes.
So, a Bharatanatyam dancer of international renown, Alarmel Valli's distinctive dance style has been described as classic and yet contemporary, precise and poetic. She is a recipient of several awards, including the Padma Shri, the Padma Bhushan, the Chevalier of Arts and Letters from the Government of France, amongst others. She has performed across prestigious international venues. Documentaries on her include Arun Khopkar's Pravahi for the National Archives, a film by BBC for the Omnibus series, and Lasya Kavya by Sankalp Meshram, which won the 2012 National Award for the Best Film on Art and Culture. When Valli and I were brainstorming about what the subject of this conversation could be, I actually suggested we talk about her mother, who was really Valli's constant companion in her journey in dance. You know that Mother's Day is around the corner, and honestly, it's a cliche, and really mothers need to be celebrated every single day. We don't need one day dedicated to mothers. But I thought it would be really appropriate for you to share your thoughts on your mother, who was very, very special. I have had the opportunity of interacting with her on several occasions, both as a journalist and in my stint with her. And I've always been touched by her, both by her intelligence, her warmth, her hospitality, and a very, very sharp mind. And I've always really, Valli, I want to tell you this, that I've always been amazed at how singularly she was dedicated to your passion and pursuit of dance. So I also thought that this conversation would be appropriate for young dancers who are tuned in today, who also rely on their mothers. As you know, that the world of dance is very, very lonely and cumbersome, and navigating through it all definitely requires somebody like mothers to be able to stand by their daughters and children to be able to do this. And mothers usually come on board as best friends, critics, mentors, and managers.
Yes.
So I'm firstly going to start off by asking you about, when you think about your mother, when you think about Uma Auntie, in the context of a constant companion, what are amongst the things that come to your mind? What comes to your mind actually?
Actually, there's so much. You have said some of the things. When I think of my mother, there is so much to say. I don't know where to start. But she was an exceptional person as much as she was an exceptional mother. Of course, those who don't know her will be thinking, oh, it's her mother. After all, to everyone, their mothers are exceptional. But I think all those who knew her, even those who were just acquainted with her, will agree that she was a remarkable personality. Um, the great thing about her was that she had extraordinary gifts, but she kept them all under a bushel, so to speak, and she dedicated and focused her life on me, on making me a good dancer. Uh, you have spoken about her hospitality, which was a byword, but she was also a brilliant mind, a lady of great vision, to see my talent and then to work to make me the dancer I am. She was also a gold medalist in English literature, a very fine scholar. In fact, my journey through Sangam poetry, she was the one who put my feet on that path by introducing me to it. She had a great sense of humor. I think some of my students may be watching. She
Yeah.
was incredibly generous. She used to sit and shape them and try to hone their adavas just as she would with me. They would have long sessions where they would watch films together when I was not around. And with my orchestra, for instance, they have known her very well. All the musicians who have sung for me, who have collaborated with me, who have given me so much support all my life, she had a very close relationship with them, with my gurus, with Muktama, with Chokalingam Pillai sir, who respected her such a lot. Um, we used to go on tours abroad, and she used to bring this rice cooker, which we would call the Akshay Patram, because we all wanted our rasam sadam and our kootu curry and things like that. And she used to be called Anna Lakshmi. She was everybody's mother. And she had, I think, the most remarkable thing for me is her integrity. There was not a false bone in her body. She would say what she felt, cut and dry. And as far as some of my friends are concerned, I know that they would say we can confide more in her than we can in you. She was that kind of personality. For me, personally, she was my rock of Gibraltar. She was my protective kavacham. And if I may say so, she was a great builder, Akhila. Builder both literally and figuratively. She built this dream house called Lavanya, which we used to live in until a month before we passed away. And I have heard where she would sit with an umbrella in the Kattari heat. And it was not difficult because we were joint family. Setting up Tani Kurtanam couldn't have been easy. But with the
Yeah.
support of some wonderful family members, she went ahead. And every brick had to be soaked properly. The sand had to be sieved. The cement had to be properly packed. That was her commitment to excellence. She was a lady of grit, of determination, courage. And she built this house which she filled with light and beauty and laughter, with dance and music and
Yeah.
hospitality.
Of course.
And she brought those same qualities to bear to lay the foundation for my life as a dancer. So she's not just Uma. You know, they say Lavanya is the house that Uma built. Alarmel Valli is also the house that Uma built. But I would like to say it's not as though she just constructed the house, decided what she wanted. You know, Akhila, the great thing was, as a friend and as someone she was very fond of, she gave me the freedom, the knowledge first, and then the freedom to make my own choices. In life, first I said, I want to be an astrophysicist. Then I
Oh,
said, I want to be.
we didn't know that.
Then I said, yes. And then I said, the family wants me to be a lawyer in Cambridge. She said, yes, padichena, anupre. Then I went to Paris at the age of 16, and then I came back transformed, and I said, I want to be a dancer.
Wow.
That made her happiest of all. And I must add, finally, my husband. She gave me the choice. There never any pressure from her or my father either. You marry when you're free, you want to, when you're ready for it. And so I have a wonderful husband, Bhaskar.
He's logged in, yeah.
I am what I am because of her.
Beautiful. Valli, it's been 2 years now since she passed away. And what about her do you really, really miss on like an everyday basis?
You would have guessed, anyone watching the audience would have guessed by now that the threads of her life were so closely interwoven with mine, that interwoven into the fabric of my life, that there is not a moment when I do not think of her and do not miss her. But specifically, if you want to know what I miss the most, you said you have, the title is My Mother, My Companion in My Dance Journey. From the day she took me to Chokkalingam Pillai sir, Pandanallur Chokkalingam Pillai sir and Pandanallur Subrai Pillai sir were my gurus. From that day, she sat in on every class of mine.
Wow.
She would sit and watch keenly. She would make sure I woke up at 5 in the morning, made sure I, practiced after class. I'd rush to school, come back and practice again. And I think she knew as much about the dance as I did, certainly. The musicians have seen her sitting in on every rehearsal. She won't say much when they were there, otherwise she would have pulled me up or said something. But yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, Valli, but had she studied dance? How was she such a keen commentator and observer of dance? Like, did she want to be a dancer or something like that?
In those days, it was not possible, yes. But she had a passion, a reverence for dance, and an extraordinary ability to observe. And I think this is important for every dancer, this ability to watch and to observe. So she picked up the nuances of what these masters had taught. And so that she was able to tell me, Natya Kai, even with my students before their Arangetram, she'd say, Kai, when it should go like there shouldn't be a bump on the wrist and the strength should flow in from the hands. She would tell you where there was half an inch deviation. She had such meticulous attention to detail. It was extraordinary. And then when I was choreographing, she would sit and she would say, Murchitiya, na eppa paakalam. And after I showed her the piece, it wouldn't be complete, but she would give me inciseful, unerringly, incisive, searingly honest comments about it.
Actually, that is my next question. But before that, I want to share a personal story. I remember one afternoon when we were discussing Barney about 4 years ago. She was not very, she was a little ill, actually. She was in the room. And I remember that actually came into where we were sitting down in that beautiful little foyer in your, in Lavanya. And I remember I think just at that time, one of your reviews had appeared in another publication. And I performed in Delhi and a publication had reviewed your performance. It was a very beautifully written review. But I remember Auntie sat with a printout and she read it line by line, really soaking in each word and offering her point of view on idu nanna ezhudirukka, in the word, this choice of word is very good. But this, maybe she could have used this word. She was so such a keen observer. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to have Auntie see any of my pieces, because she was so thorough in her, like,
that meticulous attention to detail, that aspiring for perfection is something which she tried to instill in me too. And talking of letters in language, she had a wonderful hand and a wonderful style. In fact, when writing letters, she would tell me, writing a letter is not just imparting information. That when you write, your writing style expresses the person you are. So therefore, you are putting as much of yourself into that paper as just information. So write with care. And then she'll teach me how to introduce, how to conclude. And the interesting thing, of course, dancers might wonder, what is this Alarmel Valli saying this? But for my choreography today, to this day, I draw upon the principles that my mother taught me in essay and letter writing. It's not a direct connection, but it is there in my subconscious. And from there, I draw upon it. There's one more thing I just want to say about you. And you said that, what do I miss about my mother? I'm sure you would also. அம்மாக்கு தான் அந்த உரிமைன்றது இருக்கு.
Beautiful,
and
yeah.
the sense of identification, that right with which they can pull you up. And I miss my mother categorically. Vettu onnu thundu rendu, cut 1 and 2 pieces. She would tell me without mincing her words where I was going wrong. And one incident which I remember, just a few days before she passed away, I was busy with the interiors of the house, obsessed and forget to eat. And they'd bring me a bowl of yogurt, which I would forget to eat until night. She saw this, and it was just 2 or 3 days before she passed away. She was breathless. And she said, Valli, thaira saapudu. And the thaira, yes, saapuda matengira. Saapudu. And then she was so vehement, it didn't even seem to be about the thaira. So I told her, Amma, I'm 60 years old. I'm not 6. Why are you saying this to me like this, thaira saapudu? And I'll never forget her words. All my life I will remember. She said, Na solluven, I must tell you. Who else will tell you when you are going wrong? You can't afford to be careless about your health. Na irukka matten Valli, my time is limited. I must tell you. She said it with that vehemence. I miss Amma telling me when I'm going wrong.
Yeah. Sorry, Valli, to have to sort of,
No, I brought it up. So I deserve it.
I want to ask you about, you spoke about this, there's a certain honesty and objectivity with which she, shared feedback, and always, in some sense, like you rightly said, and the urimaingar sense of entitlement with which only can show us the mirror, right?
Yes.
Any stories about how all that constant act of Auntie, where she constantly showed you the mirror, how did that really shape you as an artist?
In the Speak McKay talk on 25th, I had mentioned that she used to humorously introduce herself to strangers as Nanda, Valli's dragon mother, she would say. And I believe that behind every successful, no, not just successful, behind every complete artist, there has to be a loving dragon. Whether it is a mother or a father, grandmother, grandfather, we need somebody who would be strict, who will tell you when you're going wrong, but do it with love. In the dance world, we know, to tear us to pieces, there are enough critics. And there are enough fans who will praise you to the skies and say, oh, so wonderful. But only those who love you, who know your art, and who look at you with wisdom and in an unbiased way, you need someone like that to tell you you're going off the path and then to pull you back. So all of us, it is a boon to have a mother like that for an artist. For me, she set the bar you said perfectionist. Yeah, she was such a perfectionist. She set the bar high and she expected the best standards. But I think, again, there, the beauty of it was she knew my capacity. So it was not a bar that was too high, which made me lose my confidence. And that's what I tell my students, that each of you has different capacities. Anna, you do your best. That is what I expect of you.
Yeah.
Speaking of confidence, as a child, I was Wulli Kuchi in Sulvanga. You're looking at me now, you can't make out.
Please, what are we all supposed to feel then?
No, because I put on weight. But in those days, people used to be unflattering about it. Pencil mari irka. And they'd say, Romba thinna irka. Let her stop her dancing. My mother was the one who held out, and she would say, tell me, don't listen to them. You are much stronger than you look. She gave me that confidence right through life. And I discovered that in dance, truly, you sometimes discover strength that you didn't even know you possessed.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm going to ask you a question that I often think about mothers, and in some way, mothers, not just of artists, but mothers have this amazing ability. They sort of, even my mother, sometimes I think about how she provides me this security blanket, allowing me to do what I want, in some sense, helping me cut off from the noise and focus on what I want to do, right? And in your case, your mother really provided you that luxury, if I may say so, to be able to, whenever you wanted to cut yourself off from the noise and really dive into your arts, right? That's a
Yes.
fantastic gift, right? Would you like to talk about that?
Yes, certainly. Because I could not have done anything if my mother had not created space, time, and quiet for me. I told you the reason she built that house is because she felt Nanu konja vale, Valli is a bit of a vale, not so self-disciplined. So I need an environment where she can focus and I can focus on her. So dance time was sacrosanct. Nobody was allowed to intrude. Visitors Vanda, she would come from the sit out where my dance studio was to the hall, and she'd say, Nee practice panna na boy paathukuren. And sometimes I'd have to go to say hello.
Yeah.
My mother was a very expressive person. She had this
I remember.
look. Each look would signify. So 5 minutes into the conversation, there would be this steady look at me, which meant, po, na paathukuren, you go back to your dance. I think, today, in the pre-internet era to which I belong, Akhila, you're not there, you're much younger, but you must remember a time before when we were not beset by the cacophony of this digital noise that there is around us. What are we doing? If they say that, this is isolation period, but we are in such a state of frenetic activity. So that is certainly, those days we didn't have all that. But even when children played, exactly at a certain time she would come. My cousin was talking about it the other day and say, Valli, class ke pola. And I would quietly trot away. No matter how interesting the activity, it might have been some picnic, it might be whatever. Dance time was sacrosanct.
But Valli, you said you were a Val. Did you really? Were you? I can't even believe that.
I had a cousin. We were a joint family. I'm an only child. She is also Vanita. She was the sort of person, if you told her Vendaka is good for you, she'll go out into the garden and eat raw Vendaka. Unfortunately, I was not like that. I used to be very frail. Adikadi Thondavali, I used to get a sore throat. So I'd climb into the mango tree, into the gooseberry tree, eat raw mangoes, and then I'd fall ill and be dosed with some ghastly medication. So I needed my mother to give me that focus, to make sure I woke up at 5 in the morning to be in time for class, that I had a second session of class in the evenings after coming back from school. And she was, a stickler for rules and no half measures in all this. She would say, Padippu dance. In fact, as a child, she'd put me on her lap and say, Par, Panam, money is here today, gone the next. Manam pona pokellam poga vettam. Don't let your mind go here, there. Because the only wealth, true wealth that you have is that your dance, your music, your padippu, that nobody can take away from you. So she used to give me all these wonderful maxims and lessons for life, if you like to call them.
Yeah.
And
Also spoken your life in Kodaikanal Valley. Do you want to talk about it? Like how, you'd, because we spoke about this being able to cut off from, this cacophony that we are all sort of trapped in. And you lived in a world where really like you had the luxury of just being and really the pleasure of leisure. So would you like to talk about that and how,
yes, I would. But may I just say one more thing about my mother, which is, I think, very important to any dancer, particularly students, young students today. She used to use a word called sacred commitment. You know, if you ask me what are the principles she instilled, I'd say first and foremost, she would say, be true to yourself. Today, as dancers, we are, the YouTube is telling us something. Somebody is telling you politically correct. Someone's saying this is fashionable, this is marketable. So, with all these currents
very
flowing, yes, so we are tossed like boats on a stormy sea. And for this, the main thing she used to say is, doesn't matter what anyone says, be true to yourself and your convictions. This was her philosophy in life. This above all, to thine own self be true. And it follows as the night the day. Thou canst not then be false to any man. Hamlet learned. This was her philosophy. It is mine. And she would speak of sacred commitment. And I'd like to just share an anecdote. Not playful, and you were just saying, she said, how come you were playful?
I can't believe that.
I I was a Val. Amma would often say, Val illada korangani, she would tell me.
That's like
But,
her bar is really high.
huh?
That's her
Yeah.
bar really high. Her
High?
bar really high.
Oh, really? No, but there was this time when I was dancing my cousin's wedding. She was the first dancer in the family, Sucharita Subramaniam. So, Master had taught me a Jatiswaram to present. And it was one of those off days. I went to class and I made a mistake in one sequence and I was sloppy. Masters, both Chokkalingam Pillai and Subrai Pillai had a soft spot. They call me Kutti Valli. So they didn't, in fact, I was just seeing V.V. Ramani sir's conversation. He used to be so much a part of my growing years. So there's something very close about him being, in those days, knowing him. But anyway, masters were there and I could see my mother's face going very stern. And I was also a bit of a drama queen. So I knew what was going to come. So before I got into the car, I said, Amma, I still remember this scene. Amma, I didn't make any mistakes. I did the whole Jatiswaram. And the Uri edatla, just that one place I made a mistake. Dead silence. Then I tried another ploy. I tried the pathos angle. I said, Amma, காலெல்லாம் இன்னைக்கு வலிக்குதுமா எனக்கு. Then she just looked steadily at me and she said, Valli, dance is a sacred commitment. If you want to play the fool, don't dance. It's not a casual hobby. நீ பூஜை பண்றச்ச, then she told me, பூ சுவாமிக்கு கொடுக்கறச்ச, will you be allowing, when you're offering flowers, allowing your mind to wander all over the place? Dance is a puja. The moment you go onto the floor, don't forget that your entire being has to be focused on the dance and nothing but the dance, because it is 100% giving 100% of yourself and then some more. Blood, sweat and tears. I never knew all this blood, sweat and tears. I couldn't understand sacred commitment, but I do now.
Yeah, that's what
Isn't it? In any discipline, isn't it so important? So she gave me all these wonderful principles, but never as empty platitude. It was not some lecture she was reading, because she lived by each and every one of those. That was the great thing about Amma.
But Valli, if she was such a sort of a, such a perfectionist and with so much meticulous attention to detail, she had you as her fantastic student who really imbibed those, everything that she said. Didn't you ever rebel to go to class? Or, I mean, did you sort of, how did, I mean, if she had these sort of, in some sense, exacting, right? At some point, as a young child, you may feel like you were dance pananuma, book padikalame. But how did you sort of naturally just kind of, you never felt like rebelling, or did you always know dance? That's what.
She used to call me her little rebel. I, I had my off moments. I was a dreamer. I would play truant. I was a total bookworm lacking the specs. So that is why I think it's so important in every child's life. In my own class, parents come who are more committed to the dance than the students. And I tell them, Pare, you will regret it later. Look how interested your parents are. And then they look at their mothers like that. You see, they say, don't look at your mother like that. So I used to have my tiffs with my mother, certainly, but I respected her enormously. So as I said, if my mother finally said it, that was the ultimate. And there was such faith that all she was saying was for my good. So there was that wonderful bond between us. I certainly have quarreled as I'm sure you as a daughter who's very close, we have our arguments.
All the time.
Ilya. So
But
I think it is natural.
Older, Valli, I feel like we learn to respect them and value them so much more.
Yes, because as we grow older, you realize the precious truth of all that they were trying to give, all that they gave so generously, with self-sacrifice, they gave it to you. I think, if I look back, the kind of regimen that she had created for me, sometimes I marvel that ivlavum panna mudinjudha and kaalathila. See, 5 o'clock I get up, 5:45 dance class. 8:30, 8:45 master never looked at his watch. He would keep teaching. I'd look at my mother, class, school late aayirukku. Then I'd go, arrive just in time for assembly, come back home, have another session with mother before starting. And after school and college, I started, that was after Paris. I fell in love with Odissi and Kelu Babu came, taught me, and then he left his student Ramani Ranjan Jena here to teach. So I used to have class 6 days a week, Odissi. Saturday, Sunday was music class. And then there was French for 3 days in the week. So, and I used to love to read. I found time to read and to play the fool. So when we look now, all our time seems to just evaporate. And I wonder, is it because of internet and the devices, would you say? That this is making us
social media addicts, so I better stay quiet. But I exactly see what you mean, because I somehow feel that we've, I remember meeting this author at the Hindu Lit for Life once, and he was the author of a book called The Pleasures of Leisure. And I went and told him that I don't understand the concept of leisure, and I'm so desperately trying to make it my own. And he said, it's entirely your loss. He said, it's your loss that you don't know the word leisure. And I do think also that dancers, Valli, I would love for you to talk about how for dancers, especially, leisure is such an important aspect, don't you think?
It is. You said something very, very invaluable. You've kind of hit the nail right on the head. It's something which, as dancers today, we need to address. In pre-internet era, pre-television, we didn't have so many distractions. So it was easier to find time to introspect. But today, with all the clutter, the cacophony, digital cacophony around us, and the distractions constantly, it is difficult to find the time, or even some people don't even have the desire for the mind to idle. And we need time to let that mind idle. And it's not, when I say idle, it's not sort of being lulled into a state of sleep. It is a deepened sense of awareness, which is, I think, what nurtures your creative self. And this is where Kodaikanal comes in. That in those days, before Kodi was as spoiled as it is now, and it was still a pristine, beautiful, lovely, safe place, I used to go down to a place called Fairy Falls, which you see in all these ads. And I'd sit through a mountain. It's like a mountain goat's track, not the main road. I'd go walking down all by myself, sit there with a book, but I wouldn't be reading even, just surrounded by the sound of water, or in Coker's Walk by the sounds of silence. And there's another wonderful memory which is there in my heart and head, is in the foothills of the Bavarian Alps. Friends had a chalet and they took me for a walk through the mountains. And right in the middle, there was this beautiful bowl, green, emerald green bowl, a valley surrounded by the hills of blue gentians. It was like gems in that green grass, blue verging on purple. It was a season of blue gentians. And from the distance, as if it had been planned, was the sound of a cuckoo, a single cuckoo. I tell you, that moment it has percolated into my mind and soul. And it is these moments of quiet when from your subconscious wonderful ideas come up. And here too, I think it was Amma who made me aware of beauty in simple things. She gave me the capacity to create islands of stillness. I think that's what, as dancers, we need to do, we are surrounded by noise. We can't change the world, but we have to create those islands of quiet within ourselves and learn to look around and observe and draw value and meaning from seemingly meaningful things. Ore, is there time for a little story?
Please go ahead. Yeah. We have before I open it up.
Okay. This is in those days I used to be traveling such a lot in Europe. In 1980, we had a long tour of Italy. Vadyar was also their master. And we were dancing not just in magnificent theaters like the Philharmonic, major theaters, but also in tiny mountain villages. And I remember one place, we got off the station and I don't even know where, but the car was winding its way through some narrow little track. It was hilly country, not many trees. And in the distance, I could see this hill with a tiny little cottage perched on top. And I was wondering, where are we going? And we were dropped off there by our hosts before the performance and said, you spend the night here. They left everything for us and then they disappeared after telling us, don't open the doors or walk out in the evenings because sometimes there are bears here. Vadyar and the singers and other musicians went off to sleep. Amma was sitting and writing. She'd always be doing something, reading. I had no book. So I was pacing up and down, irritated and saying, it's not even in the middle of the wilderness. And what am I doing here? She said, Valli, why are you, going up and down in this restless way? I said, Amma, there's nothing to do. It's not even pretty. What am I going to look at? She said, go sit near the window and look, and you will discover something. And there was this big window with a ledge. I went and sat on it because Amma said it. And first I saw a little beetle. These are vivid memories. I remember a lizard sunning itself. And then I noticed a bush leaning against the wall. And on it was a spider building a web. It's a fascinating thing to watch a spider. It's almost like a dance. When it's pulling the silk out like that and then attaching it, then it'll scuttle around and then it'll pull the silk out and then attach it again. Then it'll move, and then I sat there for about an hour and a half or two just watching this spider weave this thing of beauty, this fairly big spider, but it was a thing of beauty. And it was meditative. My heart stilled, the palpitations stilled, and it was a very enriching moment for me as an artist. And if someone is thinking at the end of the Valarra, between a spider and the dance, what is the connection? But to be very honest, like that invisible silk, almost invisible, but strong silk, there was a connection between that moment made to my subconscious, which I think it is has enriched me, and it is in these moments of ineffable beauty, moments that you can't really articulate. You don't know what it is. It is these moments that make us better artists. And that is why it's so important for us as dancers to create those moments when you can sit there and watch a spider for some time. Maybe if we took holidays from social media, from devices, just one day in a week if we could, and just,
Absolutely.
it's almost, would you agree, Akhila, that it's almost as if we are scared to be alone with our thoughts?
Well, it's in the new world. It's called FOMO, fear of missing out. We all have
Oh,
called FOMO. So we're never
really?
cut off, yeah, because we're all just afraid that we're going to miss the bus. So at one point,
Oh,
in the bus like once in 3 months. Now we think about missing the bus in 3 minutes. So
oh, so I didn't know there's actually a term for this. Oh,
incidentally,
interesting.
when you
Then
share
I'm
this,
also in this FOMO state because now in this lockdown, I find myself first thing in the morning reaching for the cell phone. I'm saying, enough, stop it, don't look, because there is no time. And I know that we are working household chores also now, but why are we so restless in spirit? I really feel dancers, we need to think about that
that is a
and
very
not make technology a crutch.
absolutely, and I think it's a relevant point even for non-dancers like me. And on Kodaikanal, the editor of the weekend, Rosella Stephens, talked about fairy falls apples.
Fairy Falls and
Apples, fairy falls apples.
Fairy Falls apples. Oh
Apples.
my, those were the days. Really, what a magical space it was. Cody, the quiet that you could find, uh, the silence of the hills is something absolutely beautiful. Nature, there is something about nature which is, it refreshes the spirit, it rejuvenates you in a way which we cannot imagine. It's like the ocean. We think the ocean is so beautiful. Constant waves, the ebb and flow of the tide. It's beautiful. But Akila, would you agree with me that also in the still calm of a deep pond, a clear deep pond, rich with life within, that has its own beauty.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So if we
I'm
could find,
yeah. But Vali, just talking to you, I'm sure there are lots of comments as well. Just talking to you and listening to the way you're able to remember and articulate these stories, I'm feeling a great sense of leisure. So thank you so much for, really giving me this 1 hour of getting a mild sense of the pleasure of leisure. So thank you so much. Just one last question before I
yes,
open the questions is, I just want to, there are so many dancers tuned in here,
I
and all of them rely so much on their mothers. I'm sure so many of them who, I mean, for those who have their mothers and, around,
yes, yes.
there's something that you'd like to tell them that sometimes, I keep reminding myself, and nowadays I make a conscious effort to keep telling my mother how much I love her and that she's, social media also allows you that platform. So I'm very unabashedly sharing some photos of my mother and putting it, saving it just so that I don't want to, look back and
Yeah,
say I acknowledge her when she was
yeah.
around. So would you like to say something to dancers in terms of how they must, you know, um, show a sense of gratitude to their mothers, perhaps?
I wouldn't presume to, you know, give advice. I'm learning myself so many things. So, but I would like to say, just share what I feel. You know, what I feel about my mother is that I love storms. I love monsoons. I even love the thunder, lightning, the gray clouds. It's all very exciting, but it's exciting so long as you are in a cozy space, in a sheltered space. Then you look out and you enjoy the flashes of lightning, the trees tossing in the wind. I think my mother was that cozy house in a storm. And I think for all of us, our mothers are shelters, they are havens in a stormy world.
Absolutely.
And there is not a day passes when the problem is I think we tend to take them for granted very often. because we are caught up in our hectic lives and they stay in the background, most of them, or many of them, and they give and they give and they give. They sacrifice so much without saying it. That quiet, strong presence that is your mother, very often we take, they are there.
Yeah.
And I think so often, not often, every day, I think, I wish, as I shared with all of you what my mother was, I wish I had told her that. I never expected she would pass away so soon. And I wish I had told her that all that she meant to me. So if there are those of you whose mothers have been as, every mother gives so much.
Yeah.
I think it is a
Absolutely.
wonderful thing, like you said, if we can tell them, in our culture, it's difficult to go and say, we love you, I love you. We don't say it as easily as the Americans do. But even if you don't say, I love you, at least to tell them that you acknowledge their contribution. They're not waiting for it. They don't expect anything from you. But if you can tell them and tell them how much it means to have, I think that we should, every day, you said it at the outset, every day we should remember our mothers. Every day we should celebrate and pay tribute to them.
Yeah.
And to bring the emotion down a little, if I may say. What is that in Star Trek that the Vulcans say? What is it? Live long and prosper. So may
Yeah.
the tribe of mothers
Yay.
live long and prosper wherever they are,
Yes.
because they are gems. They are
Gems.
the pillars on which we all rest.
Yeah. Sita Ratnakar says she almost teared up listening to your story because it's her mother's centenary next week.
Oh, that her mother was such a remarkable person, Ratna and Sita, and I know she can relate entirely. And she knew, they used to call her Umaka, so there was a nice bond and friendship. So I know exactly what we all feel when we lose. It is like an amputation, losing a parent who you love deeply.
So, Valli, I'm just going to ask people to, if they have any questions, we have about 5 to 8 minutes. So, if anybody has questions,
That's all, is it? Oh gosh.
so to share, then it would be lovely to.
Sorry I took up so much time.
Not at all, not at all. We listened to you with rapt attention. Thank you.
Sorry.
If anybody has any comments, questions, dancers who are listening in. I'm really still thinking, and as Rosella also rightly said, about this islands of stillness. Oh my God,
Yes.
that's a beautiful, phrase, really. I mean, and only
The thing is that most of my friends and my relatives and most of my circle are not on Instagram. So I'm afraid that most of them are not here.
says from Kodai to Europe to Star Trek, this conversation has been absolutely delightful.
Prema Reddy, we love you, Auntie. Thank you, Ma. I don't know if what I said resonated with, because the younger generation live in a different world from mine. So
But
I'm not.
Valli,
Hi, Vidya.
the importance of schedules. I think your mother set one beautifully for you. Importance of schedule. Valli, could you just talk about the importance of, and my husband says listening to her is making me feel a sense of calm.
Oh, I must say congratulations. Please tell him, I want to say to him, thank God, like my husband who is undemanding, and Bhaskar, who's I don't think listening because he's not on Instagram.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bhaskar is here.
Yes, my God, he must have signed on. Thank you, Bhaskar. I'm touched to sign on to Instagram. But your husband, like mine, they are there. They give us the support and they don't make any demands. And that is something so incredible for us to have partners.
From Shruti Mohan, she asks you, how does one teach musicality to students of dance?
You're asking me something which is like it would take volume and it would take a year to really go into it. But maybe on the 9th, there is this talk with the dancers. I'll talk a little more about it. But musicality is, to give you in a nutshell, if I can, which is difficult, it is the ability to make the music so much a part of you that instinctively as breathing, when you dance, I'm using a cliche, you're singing with your body, but to use Arundhati's term, you listen with your entire body. So in a padam, you're not just expressing with your face, you're not just depicting the story, but you are making the music visible. And that is musicality, and it comes, there's so many aspects of it. It's a magical dimension.
Right. Valli, somebody wants to know what is for you your mother's favorite recipe that she cooked so often, that one dish, right, that all of us have that we love that our mother makes.
Ooh, my mother was a superb cook,
I know.
and she was a creative culinary expert. Her takkali sadam, I think, was wonderful. She used to make it. It was lovely. It has jeeragam and dhania and cashew nuts and kasagasa, and it has all this ground. No clove, cardamom, no ginger, garlic, and all that. And it is the manam that it comes from the hands. That manam. So her
Yeah.
takkali rice, her tomato rice, my cook tries, but I don't think he can make it as she does. There's
Valli,
so many other dishes.
Biksha has a question. At NKC 2019, you spoke about taking down notes when you read. Your mother would make you take down notes when you read.
My mother would make me take down notes.
When you would read. Do you want
Well,
to?
yes, yes. You know, when I was talking, you spoke about letter writing, right? How do
Absolutely.
you how do you develop your writing style? And I think it's so important for dancers today and all time. Literature and poetry are they should be the fabric of our being, along with music. So because even musicality comes from a knowledge of poetry. And she would give me, that is because I was fast flipping through the pages, and she grabbed that book and said, "Yenna, gobble pandre, you'll have indigestion if you read so fast." And she gave me the book and said, "Write down phrases, metaphors, idioms, because you have to enrich your imagination and learn to think idiomatically and metaphorically." As a person, she was not just even talking of dance, but that comes to my aid to this day, because then the imagination doesn't think just in a linear way. It is not just prosaic. It becomes much more poetic.
Absolutely.
So I think that was a very important aspect of growing up.
So, by the way, Bhaskar Das says, yes, your mother's tomato rice was top notch.
Oh, she pampered him. I'm sorry, I don't pamper him at all, but he used to be pampered. My mother would gang up with him. I'd say, "Why is he eating all this?" She'd say, "Nee chumma iru. I'm giving my mapla." So that was,
Last request from Sita Ratnakar. She's asking you
yes.
to recite a poem, and with that, we will end, Valli. So, because I don't want for it to get disconnected without me thanking you so much. So, in case it
Here's my
gets
phone. I have to recite. Sita, I don't, my memory is gone, Sita, these days. Okay, I just remember these two verses from Yeli Nevadu, Annamacharya, Telugu Padam, English Padam, poems I'll have to read. But see, you spoke of musicality, there is music in the text. And there's this wonderful poem. Where can I find it? Shall I read that poem, Yeli Nevadu? I have to look. See, this is where technology is really such an aid. Let me just, if you'll give me just a minute. Elina Vadu, oh my God, Annamacharya, my Annamacharya. Okay, I'll just say what I remember. The first two verses in English, in Telugu. Sita, forgive me for the pronunciation. Elina Vadu Tanu, Yemanagala Nenu, Polinchi Tanannurake, Pogadi Kaka. పంతమాడ నెంతదాన పలుమారు తనతోను చెంతత నా చెప్పినట్టు చేసినది. Just to give you an idea, this Alamelu Manga, delightful, feisty, knowing where she stands with Lord Venkateshwara, is playfully tongue-in-cheek talking. And she says, she keeps saying he's the master. And the next thing she says, what can I say? When he says I'm greater than others, then she says he's the master. And it goes on like that. It's an amazing poem. To think that they wrote it in the 15th century we talk of feminism. What
Yeah.
sort of an amazing... shall I read that poem? I got it here.
But Valli, I just want to tell you that we may get logged out suddenly. So before that, I thank you so much for being such a sport, logging on to Instagram and doing this. And I thoroughly enjoyed it as much as everybody. You really brought alive your mother. And we literally have felt Auntie's presence, and you really made us feel so special about our mothers. Thank you so much. Now you can recite the poem, Valli.
No, please, I want to thank you. Akhila, let me thank you. I want to thank Hindu for giving me this opportunity. They've known me since I was 11. And my first review was by N.M. Narayanan, great critic. And thank you for being such a evocative moderator and asking such pertinent questions, because you knew my mother, and that has made this Instagram experience much easier for me. I had my first digital online Arangetram on the 25th, but this I was all thumbs because it's something new. But I'm finding it quite an enjoyable experience, so I must...
Oh, yeah, welcome.
So thank you, Akhila, for being such a sport and for giving me this very enjoyable experience. It's been good fun for me.
I know.
So,
And
it's a learning process. I really have learned so much today by doing this, because I can't live islands of quiet and Cholita. I can't live an island. I also have to live in the middle of the world. So
absolutely.
this has brought me willy-nilly grumbling. I've come into the real world, so to speak. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Valli. I can't read the poem. In case we get disconnected, I'm really sorry about that.
Okay, I'll try and read it a little fast. This poem, he's the master. What can I say when he says I'm better than the others? I don't even have to ask. He takes whatever I say as a command. Why should I brag? My husband is under my thumb. He's the master. Who am I to serve him when he takes joy in serving me? How can I tell you the 1,000 ways he's with me? He knows everything just like God, and he praises me. He's the master. I'm always in his arms. He's always laughing with me. He's the God on the hill, and I'm Alamelumanga. Do I have to make a statement? He's my slave. He's the master.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this. And I really hope to see you on Instagram more. I'm going to take
Maybe, fingers crossed.
But I'm going to everything that you said, and I'm really going to think about it. And I think lots of dancers here also must think about everything that you spoke about: islands of stillness, rigor, meticulous attention to detail, tuning out to sort of be able to tune in. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you for being such a wonderful audience, everybody.
Yes, thank you all for being there, taking the time to come and listen to me. There's one thing I've started worrying, that too much of this digital appearance online, I'm yakking too much, yakety yak. So thank you for listening and being such a patient audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Valli. Thank you all.
Thank you
again. Bye.
Thank you, Subhiksha. I must
yeah.
thank her for training me. She was my guru. Thank you, Subhiksha, for
She's a
taking
young
me through the process.
Thank you.
you.
Bye.
Bye.